These stories are considered to be Egyptian fiction. The first story with Khaemwaset being our hero, Khaemwaset, and Neferkapta being a magician. In the story, he finds a book of magic written by Thoth. While he's investigating the tomb, the spirit of the prince advises him not to remove the book, but he does so anyway, only to be, let's say, enchanted by a beautiful but evil woman who wants him to murder his own children. He somehow believes that he's actually done it and feels distraught, but once he realizes this was all just a terrible illusion, he returns the book to the tomb where he found it. But not until he's read it, obviously. So now the spirit of the tomb asks for a favor. They request that he go in search of the remains of the spirit's wife and children. And he finds the bodies as per the spirit's instructions, and he places them in the tomb with Prince Neferkapta. And then he seals it away as to prevent any further disturbance. According to Wikipedia, the book written by Thoth contains 2 spells, one of which allows the reader to understand the speech of animals, and one which allows the reader to perceive the gods themselves. So the gods can't hide themselves. According to the story, the book was originally hidden at the bottom of the Nile, near a place called Koptos, where it was secured inside a series of boxes, watertight, guarded by serpents. The Egyptian prince that we spoke of, who was in the tomb, called Neferkapta, fought the serpents and he retrieved the book. And of course he wasn't supposed to do that. And in punishment for his theft, the gods, well, they took his wife, Ahwere, and his son, Merab. And he was so devastated that Neferkapta committed suicide and was entombed along with the book. Now, the story reflects the Egyptians' belief that mere mortals shouldn't have the knowledge of the gods, and yet they strove to find that knowledge. They were desperate to get the information about the ancients, the items of the ancients. The second story in this compendium of fictional tales, or should I say apparent fictional tales, is called Setne 2, or The Tale of Setne, Khaemwaset, and Sai Osiris. And this story introduces a few well-recognized concepts. Our hero has a son who they name Sai Osiris, after having difficulty having children at all. So this amazing child turns up, and he turns out to be an incredibly talented magician, like the equivalent of Merlin, that sort of level. It's what we might call today a white wizard. The son is obviously an interesting character and likes to teach his father things. And at one stage in the story, he takes his father to visit the dead in the land of the Duat. And they get to see Anubis and Osiris and Thoth himself. And it's in this story where an image of both a heavenly afterlife and a hellish option are in fact described. The father learns that riches in this world do not equate to riches in the afterlife, and that a person is judged by their deeds. The most interesting part of this story is when the king is being challenged by another kingdom called Nubia. Basically, the story goes along the lines of, my magicians are more powerful than your magicians, na. And the magicians of the pharaohs were challenged in a way that they were indeed stumped. And so the pharaoh looked to his brilliant brother, Khaemwaset, our hero of the story, to sort it out. He had absolutely no clue, but he had his brilliant son, the one that had taken him into the Duat, into the land of the dead. And his son, who he believed to be a brilliant and very natural magician, he looked to him to solve this problem. And the problem, or the puzzle, relates to the contents of a letter. And the child reads the letter remotely, and Egypt wins the challenge. At least that's the story according to Egypt. And a little bit different in the version that I'm familiar with. But anyway, after much adventure and learning on the part of the father, the son confesses to creating an illusion of being his son, and that his real identity is that of a very famous magician known in the era of Tutmosis III. And I think I know what they were talking about and the events that got distorted around this story. But anyway, after announcing who he is, the magician disappears. Well, that's what magicians do, don't they? And that's obviously a popular thing to do even in those days. But then the real son is born and is given the same name of Osire, after the previous son who was in fact a magician. And it's clear from the story that the hero of our story, our prince, did actually have quite a lot of affection for his temporary son. That was a highly abbreviated version of the story. The complete story will answer the question as to what was in the letter and why the other wizard wanted to upset the Pharaoh of Egypt. And the other question that needs to be answered is, who was the son that then vanished? Who was this wizard who was pretending to be his son? And why was he pretending to be his son? So I will answer those questions in the next episode when I actually read out the full and detailed translation of this story.